Yeah, we're not doctors or giving any medical advice. This show is intended for educational purposes only, and you should talk to your doctor about any medical issues. Now, let's get at it.
Welcome to Chat the Fat, where nutrition authors Nissa Gron and TC Hale are going to break down common low-carb mistakes. Let's chat all things low-carb, keto, digestion, and more so you can maximize your results.
Hello, good people, and welcome back to Chat the Fat. This is episode 10. I'm TC Hale, and I'm here with Nissa Gron. What do you think about a part 2?
We are ready for a part 2.
We can do a part 2. We already did a part 1. So anything else we need to know before we get into a part 2?
No, we talked a lot of keto myths last week, and we had to do a 2-part episode because there's just so much bad keto information floating around out there.
Right. So part 9, episode 9 was part 1. So if you haven't listened to episode 9, why are you here? Are you trying to hurt me? I think a good friend. Yeah, a good friend would listen to part 1 of this 2-part episode. So go to chatthefat.com/episode 9, and you can hear all the other keto. I guess it was keto BS is what it was. It was all the wrong stuff that people think. So now we have like almost as many.
Yes, we do. And some of these are important because if people listening believe some of these myths that we're going to talk about today, they could actually be hurting their progress on keto. So they definitely will want to listen to this episode as well. But of course, after they listen to episode 9.
Right. Because maybe we'll talk about some things that will be confusing if you haven't heard episode 9. And maybe this is part 2. Maybe we're recording this on the same day and maybe it's 6 months later. We don't really know.
They're watching on YouTube, they will know that we are not, since we are dressed differently.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it could be the 6 months later, but not the same day thing. We should do one with a costume change just to keep people on their toes. I'm going to dress up like a pumpkin. Okay, so we are on Keto Myth 11.
All right. So Keto Myth 11 is keto will make you break out since too much greasy fat results in acne. So this one, of course, we've all been told since high school when a lot of people started breaking out that eating greasy foods are going to make you break out. And a lot of people associate greasy foods with fatty foods. And that is true that too much fat can result in acne if you're not digesting fat well, which I know you know a little bit about.
I know some things about that, and it's not just the greasy foods. You kind of got to look at kind of what's going on. And the number one situation is like all the time I'll be like in the store and there'll be like a checkout kid like bagging the groceries or something, and he just has the worst acne ever. And I feel so bad. I want to just hand him a bottle of beet flow because it's really about having your bile flow correctly. And when bile is not flowing correctly, we can't emulsify the fats we eat. So all the fats that we eat don't get digested correctly, and they kind of rot and ferment and can become this toxic kind of fat. You know, any fat that we can't process kind of becomes toxic to the body, so the body wants to push it all out any way it can. And if the exit strategies aren't working correctly, which bile flow is the main exit strategy for the body for junk, then the body tries to push it out through the skin. It's another way we can clean things out. So that's one factor. But then what if you're just eating toxic fats right off the bat? Like you don't have to wait for them to turn toxic because you can't digest them. They're just automatically, here you go with toxic fats.
Do you mean like trans fats or?
Yeah, like all those fats that are in the fryer at the drive-through kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And not only are those already toxic to the body, but then they fry in them for a week, and then they send it through this, like it's like a grease vacuum cleaner kind of thing, or like a coffee filter for grease, where they actually filter it so that they can use it again. So if your imagination is good in any way, you can probably figure out that that's not the best thing to put inside your body.
No, that sounds pretty gross, actually.
Right. Yeah.
And I put it inside my body for years.
Right. And didn't we all? And so yes, these things can cause acne, but you need to have things going wrong. Even the toxic fats don't create acne if your body is efficient at getting junk out. We're kind of made to allow some junk to come in. We can kind of get away with that. But once those are compromised a little bit and a person is not so efficient at letting the junk remove, then it's kind of like just about anything that comes in can cause a lot of problems. So this is a situation where there's a lot of different kind of factors to look at, but it's not the fat's fault that's creating the acne. It's your inability to process the good fats or remove other junk, and it's just too much of a burden on your body.
And there's a lot of people who actually see their acne improve on keto because they quit eating other foods like grains or some other types of carbs that can actually make their bile sludgy.
Right.
And
Especially grains, yeah.
yeah, especially those. And then we also have too many carbs. When you're eating too many, that can actually cause inflammation, and that can also result in breakouts. So it's not just fat that we should blame.
Yeah, and I also feel like, we've talked on other shows before where if somebody's bile is just a little bit sludgy, like they maybe just need a little bit of help, just stimulating the bile flow by eating a lot more fats could, over a period of weeks or months, could improve bile flow and then improve their acne. But for those individuals, the acne could even get worse initially. But I don't suggest people just try to fix it by powering through the keto. I want them to take steps to fix their bile flow so that they don't have to suffer through that period. And
Yeah.
if somebody's bile flow is significantly bad, eating a lot more fats is not going to fix the problem. It's just going to make the person nauseous and worse skin issues and all those things.
Yeah, I think I remember back to when I was fixing up my bile flow and I started taking all the steps that you recommend. It actually did get worse for a little while before it got better, but now it's better and it's been better for years. So it was definitely the solution for me.
Right, cool.
So speaking of foods that cause inflammation, myth number 12 is a keto diet should be high in dairy. So there's actually a lot of people out there that believe that if you want to eat keto, you actually have to eat dairy, which a lot of people do eat dairy because a lot of forms of dairy are low in carbs. But just because they're low in carbs doesn't mean that everyone should necessarily eat dairy on a keto diet, because it can cause inflammation in some people. And eating a problem food like that could actually keep some people out of ketosis.
Right. It can be a food sensitivity for some people to where like every time you have some cheese, basically your body is going to war when with all that going on. So that's going to create some stress hormones that can elevate glucose levels and cause your body to make more of its own glucose for energy to fight this war, kind of a stress situation. So that can knock a person out of ketosis. But that doesn't mean that dairy is going to do that for everybody. Like this is saying, a lot of people do dairy on a keto diet and do great. Just, it doesn't mean that you have to. It's just an easy way to make some things delicious. Really is really all it is.
Yeah, it is delicious. And there's different ways that you could be sensitive to dairy. So like I personally, I try to eat dairy, but every time I do, it causes issues. I get a lot of sinus infections, and that's typically from the dairy that's higher in proteins, whereas other people are more sensitive to the lactose in dairy. And, this might be like an upset stomach, things like that. And this can also keep them out of ketosis if they continue to eat dairy, but they're having these issues.
And if the lactose issue is a problem for you, then that person can take what we use one called milk jest is what it's called. I think it's from Daily Manufacturing. And it's basically an enzyme that gives you that enzyme so your body can process the dairy correctly. And again, that's very helpful for probably half the people who have a hard time with dairy, but it's not going to help everybody. And I've also seen where people will take a digestive enzyme that has a little bit of the right enzyme in it. Like a digestive is the one we use, and that has a little bit of the right enzymes in it. But you really need one that's just focused towards the dairy and contains a lot more of that lactase. And so we use milk jest and see a lot of people improve with that. But if you have a food sensitivity issue, to dairy, you really have to leave it out. And some people will do better with butter and heavy cream because it has less of those proteins. Can you do butter and heavy cream?
It depends on what I'm trying to do. So I do eat butter. I took it out for a long time. I didn't notice any difference. Heavy cream, as much as I want to, it does still cause a lot of sinus issues, and I also can't really lose weight if I want to lose weight, and I'm using a lot of heavy cream.
Yeah, so it seems that butter is okay for the widest variety of people, and then goes heavy cream, and then goes all the rest. So that would make sense if somebody could do butter but not heavy cream. But those are usually the two that you have the best shot of doing okay um, with without doing all the other stuff.
Yes, and that makes me sad because I miss my heavy cream.
Yeah, it can be delicious.
All right, so myth number 13 is keto causes fatty liver disease.
Dun 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 dun.
So I don't know who is perpetuating that myth, because low carb or keto is actually a great way to improve fatty liver disease. And it's really a lot of high carb diets that are associated with worsening the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease.
Yeah, but it's right there in the name. It's fatty liver disease. So that means that it must be caused by eating lots of fat, since it's right there in the name. But
Yeah,
it's
I,
just
I guess that's where it comes from, maybe.
no, it comes from the fact that when scientists they're like, oh, this guy's dead. I'm going to cut him open and see what happened. And so they cut him open, and then they see all of these saturated fats, and they don't. A lot of them don't understand yet that those saturated fats are from palmitic acid, which actually is from eating excess carbohydrates. The body turns those excess carbohydrates into saturated fats so that they can be stored for fuel later. And those saturated fats, palmitic acid, are actually coming from excessive carbs and not from the carbs that you're eating. But again, we talked a little bit last week about how if you start jacking up your fat intake, but you're still eating crazy amount of carbs, that can cause a lot of problems to magnify, because the body's saying, I still have all these carbs that I can use for fuel, but look at all this fat coming in. I'm going to store this for later when I don't have all these crazy glucose coming in. So you don't want to do both. If you're going to do keto, that you don't want to start your keto morning with a bowl of Lucky Charms.
And so those scientists that think that the fat is causing fatty liver disease, do they still believe this? Because here we are hearing about it, and you would think that they would be up on their research and they would know that, but they're still putting that rumor out there.
Yeah, but also everything we talk about is witchcraft,
Witchcraft that works.
Right. So they're not really willing to dig into that a whole lot. But this is a situation where if you want to learn more about this, we have an episode on Kick It Naturally about cholesterol, and another one about saturated fats, where we really debunk a lot of those myths that can help you understand some of those a little bit more. But just understand that the fatty liver issue is, for most people, is almost 100% driven by the excessive carb consumption that's going on with most of the world, really. And we see a lot of people improve that issue when they just go low carb. Even just low carb can improve that issue greatly. And keto, of course, when you're removing even more of those carbs, can be just as beneficial, if not more beneficial, for a lot of people. But again, you got to be processing those fats to make it happen. Is there anything else you want to talk about on myth number 13?
That is it.
Okay, that's all I got too. So let's go to 14.
So myth number 14 is following a keto diet will turn you into an insomniac. So there are some people that report that they actually sleep better once they're following a keto diet. And there are some people that report that they sleep less, but they actually feel more refreshed on less sleep. So it's definitely important to check in with your chemistry to make sure that keto isn't making you lean too far catabolic or too far electrolyte deficient.
Right. So it's important to understand that, because when people try to demystify this myth, they'll say, well, no, keto doesn't make people have insomnia because it made somebody else sleep better. So that's not even true. But the fact is that it can be true. Keto can make insomnia worse if it's magnifying an imbalance that's actually causing that insomnia. And so that's how we usually see insomnia come about is an imbalance that we talk about a lot called a catabolic imbalance, or another one we talk about that is an electrolyte deficiency imbalance. And keto, especially when you're first starting out, has the ability to magnify either of those imbalances if they already exist to a level that they're either maybe a little bit problematic or just about to be problematic. So a keto diet could push you over the edge. But if you understand how to look at your physiology, then you can take other steps to improve those imbalances and still do keto if you want. There may be people that may need to go back towards low carb for a little bit and fix some of these issues a little more aggressively before they can go full on keto. But don't view it as keto broke my sleep, because that's not what it is. You have an imbalance, you have an issue that's causing problems with your sleep, and keto may just be magnifying that issue. So we won't talk into exactly how all those go into it. Maybe we should do a whole episode just on keto insomnia or something. For now, we have done episodes on insomnia on Kick It Naturally. So you can go to kickitnaturally.com and search for insomnia to find some episodes where we really go into some depth there. But when you learn how to do some self-tests at home to look at your physiology, then you can see, okay, maybe this is an issue that I need to fix, and fixing that is going to fix my sleep.
Yeah, and I do think people should really pay attention to that, because I think the common thing is like, I really want to lose weight, I want to go keto, and I don't care if I'm not sleeping or not, but that can really affect you. If you're not sleeping, you probably won't lose weight. And I know from my experiences, I was both electrolyte deficient and I leaned too far catabolic, and I spent many, many nights tossing and turning, not able to sleep. So I definitely fixed both of those up before I started following keto.
Right. So it's not sleeping can ruin your life. Like it's completely wrecked, and nothing you do is optimal, and you got to struggle through every day. But it's beyond the issue of, oh, I accidentally put paint thinner in my coffee, I wasn't really paying attention. It's beyond that. It's the fact that your body needs sleep to rest and repair and rebuild and do all these things that let you be alive. So
Yes.
don't ignore that just because you want to fit in your skinny jeans when you go on vacation. You just understand that you can do work to fix the problem. You don't have to just ignore it. You can have both.
And you can still see results doing both. So
Right. Right.
definitely do that. All right. So myth number 15 is keto is bad for athletes. So this one, there's actually a lot of professional athletes who follow keto now because they found that it helps them with things like improving their body composition, maintaining their performance, and also improve their recovery rate. So all those things they found to help them. In fact, there's a study that found after 12 weeks of eating a keto diet, endurance athletes cut body fat, increased oxidation and sprint power, and performed better overall on a critical power test compared to athletes on the higher carb diets.
Right. So you see a lot of people seeing improvement here. And again, that doesn't mean that keto is going to be magic for everybody, but especially for the people that are seeing excellent results, you know that it's working well with their chemistry. There are a lot of athletes who are already extremely catabolic, to the point that they're always on the injury report, so to speak, if you watch sports kind of thing. They're getting injured a lot because their body is so severely catabolic. So if that's an issue with you, and if a ketogenic diet pushes you more catabolic, it does for some people, but not everybody, then that can be a problem. So again, it's about looking at your chemistry, but just don't view it as keto is bad for athletes. It's been proven over and over again that that's not the case. So it's really about the person. It's not whether they're a cool athlete or not. You
And
let
there are
them. Your Letterman sweater is not going to affect one way or the other.
Well, there are some big athletes like LeBron James and Tim Tebow, which I don't really watch a lot of sports, but I've heard those names and they follow keto. I follow more of like the Kardashians. They all follow keto too, but they're not really athletic.
Right. They're all pretty much the same thing. And Tim
Yeah.
Tebow, I'm not sure he has a job right now. Maybe he's not the best role model we put out there, but
See, I don't follow
right.
athletics.
But people can be successful, and they are successful when they're doing this.
Yeah, and there's also a lot of marathoners who actually follow keto because they don't have to take breaks mid-marathon in order to carb up because they are tapping into their fat for their fuel source.
Okay, cool. And I'm very excited about talking about number 16 because I want to bash it.
Oh, okay. So myth number 16 is keto causes gallbladder problems. So diets low in fat can increase the risk of gallstone development, and diets high in sugar and carbs can increase the risk of gallstone development as well. Um, so I know you wanted to talk a little bit more. You wanted to start bashing.
Yeah, let's bash it up just a little bit. And one place that this could have come from, because if you have a lot of gallstones in your gallbladder and the bile is really thick and sticky and it's just not flowing correctly at all, it's just a huge bucket of problems. When you start to take the right steps to thin the bile so that it flows better, some of those stones can move around. And as they move around, one could get lodged in that biliary duct, and that's what creates a gallbladder attack. So a person could, whether they're doing steps like taking beet flow, what we use, or maybe they're doing coffee suppositories, or maybe they're just eating more fat. Any of those steps could help bile start to move a little bit more, depending on how bad the situation is. So then the person gets a horrible gallbladder attack, and they're like, oh, this causes gallbladder attacks. Keto causes gallbladder attacks. But the reality is that your gallbladder was so backed up that it was likely very close to becoming problematic and needing to be yanked out or causing some other kind of issues. But as you start to move things, some of those stones that were about to be turned into just one big rock start to move around so that they can flow out of the system a little bit. And if one gets stuck, then there's a gallbladder attack. So it's not that the keto or the steps was causing gallbladder problems. It's that the process of fixing those problems can create symptoms through those stones moving around and one getting stuck. And another thing is that one of the most problematic foods for gallbladder is grains. Like, it's right up there with the different types of medications that are the worst thing for gallbladder, like birth controls and some birth controls and stuff like that. So when you go keto, you remove all those grains. So it really can be one of the best, diets, so to speak, for a gallbladder health. Bashed.
Well, I have a big family, and quite a few members of my big family recently were on the fence of getting their gallbladder out, and I tried to talk them out of it, but they didn't want to listen to me. They listened to their doctors, which I didn't tell them not to. I told them to listen to their doctors.
Right.
But their doctors were telling them to eat a low-fat diet and then eventually get their gallbladder out, which I've seen people that have had their gallbladders out for some time. I've seen them poop their pants, not something that is pleasant. So I tried to talk them out of it, but they didn't really listen.
Right. And sometimes it is too late for some people. Sometimes, I've had clients that try to go through a lot of steps to save their gallbladder, and they were very aggressive and they did a great job and they did all the things that they should have done, but it was too late. And when they had the gallbladder taken out, it was like a golf ball size stone in there. I've seen people that it's like, yeah, that was going to take decades to whittle that thing down. And so it can just be a problem. But there are steps that people take to fix the problem and save their gallbladder. And when you can avoid some major issues down the line. And people don't always understand that having the gallbladder caused the problem, because as soon as they got it out, the gallbladder attack stopped, they felt better, everything improved, and sometimes for years. And the issues that come can take a while, so they don't associate and understand that it came from removing the gallbladder. So that can be a tricky situation. Okay, so we 16'd it up real good. We should go, let's do another one. You got another one?
I do. I have a few more. And myth number 17 is related to gallbladders. There's a lot of people out there who believe if you no longer have a gallbladder that you should not follow a keto diet. But there are definitely a lot of people out there that don't have gallbladders, and there are steps that they can take in order to have keto work for them. And one of those things is to start increasing their fat intake a little bit more slowly. And then they can also take supplements like ox bile or other supplements in order to help their digestive system out and make all this work without a gallbladder.
And I was one of those people who thought that someone without a gallbladder should not do keto. So maybe I'm the master of this myth. Maybe I'm the myth maker that created it.
Maybe.
It could be true, because you use the bile from your gallbladder to emulsify the fat. So when you don't have that anymore, you're basically, in my head, you're using a food that your body can't process correctly, and that's creating a burden for your body. But what happens is when your gallbladder is removed, the liver is still making bile and it's still been sending it through the biliary pathway. It just doesn't store in the gallbladder and get concentrated and be more effective and get dumped onto the food as soon as it leaves the stomach. So that process is gone, but the bile can still be flowing through that pathway and into the intestinal tract. And so it can still be present and help emulsify some of those fats. So the person can be processing fats, maybe just not as optimally as they used to. But then if they can take some of those other steps, like the ox bile and some other supplements that they can use, then they can magnify the situation. Now, without a gallbladder, your digestion is never going to be like it once was, but it can be better and it can be good enough to help you feel good, see results, improve health issues, all those things.
Yeah, I have an aunt who had her gallbladder taken out some time ago, and she's been in and out of the doctor's office trying to find a solution for her stomach issues for years. And then she finally started listening to some of the stuff that I was saying, and she started taking ox bile. And she was so mad at her doctors for never telling her about that, because it made
Right.
such a huge difference in her life. And not one of her doctors that she saw ever even mentioned that was a possibility.
Right. I spent a lot of time being angry at doctors too, and put a lot of energy towards that. And it's just a natural thing to do. But my advice is to try and move past it, and you found solutions. And so be excited about the solutions that you found. And we hear about that all the time with people that improve, especially chronic diarrhea with a gallbladder issue. That's the most common one. And that's not everybody. We see people with constipation with no gallbladder too, but using ox bile can really help with some chronic, diarrhea issues when it's caused by not having a gallbladder.
All right. So myth number 18, and this one's a little doom and gloom. Following a keto diet will lead to an early death.
Ooh,
So
awesome.
basically, with this one, there's nothing really all that magical about consuming carbs in your diet that is going to lead to a longer lifespan. And keto can actually improve a lot of the diseases of civilization that, if not improved, those can actually lead to an early death. So things like type 2 diabetes, metabolic syndrome. We already talked about non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and also PCOS. Are there any other ones you could think of?
There's a lot more. It's anything that can be magnified by eating carbs, which is a lot of issues. So what a person that this may be new information to them needs to view this as is that we have been running away from fat for decades because we were told that that was the cause of a lot of these issues. Yet, while we did that, and we did it exceptionally well, Snackwells and other companies that took the fat out of everything, really helped us succeed at removing all of the fat. And as we did that, all of these issues got worse, and not just a little bit. It was significantly worse. So now that we understand that, and now that people are doing the opposite of what the mainstream is suggesting, and when they do the opposite, all of these incurable diseases start to, I all of a sudden don't have that anymore. When you see that over and over again, you start to see that, okay, we were just making mistakes, and this is just so ingrained in my head that it's hard to move past it and to do what we know is right now. So you just have to, start off slow and have some butter on your broccoli, and when you don't die, then you say, okay, well, maybe I can have some more butter. Just that's kind
And
of
some salt.
right, and some salt too.
It's good like that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So our final myth that we are going to talk about, number 19, is keto reduces lean muscle mass. So this one, there's actually a lot of people who find that they need to go to the gym less often, yet they still see better results while following a keto plan. So I personally don't love lifting weights, but I started a 20-minute routine only 1 or 2 times per week and actually saw results very quickly. So I don't think that the keto diet was reducing lean muscle mass for me. I think it was doing the opposite.
Right, and I don't have a ton of experience in this avenue, and my sense is that I think that if your goal is to have no neck or to just be like a tank and to have, your biceps are as big as most people's waist, if that's your goal, then I do see where keto may be harder to achieve that for some people and with some physiology. I definitely think that that could be true, but most of us don't want to look like an alien action figure. Most people just want to look better naked. That's really all they're really looking for. And so when that's the goal, doesn't seem to be as problematic for most people. And some people doing keto, we talk a lot about doing a moderate protein amount, but a lot of people do very well on keto with a higher protein amount, especially if they're not very insulin resistant. And that might be a person who could turn into a tank or an alien action figure on keto because they would be able to eat more protein. But it's not always about packing on the protein. It's about having your physiology in a place that your body can rebuild tissues. It's about just giving your body enough that it can rebuild. You don't always need to give it more than it needs. And I think that's kind of a problem that most people have. So when you understand those things, you see that, maybe keto can be fine for this. I don't need to have a ton of protein. And if I drop my protein, if I'm a person that needs to drop my protein down a lot in order to get into ketosis, because maybe I'm a little more insulin resistant, then I might have to monitor that, and I might have to make some adjustments and maybe cycle in and out of keto or something. But for the most people, this is not the problem that people think.
All right, so those are the 19 myths that we thought to talk about for these past 2 episodes. We also have a listener question, which comes from Sammy from Lansing, Illinois, and she asked, I'm so confused when it comes to saturated fats. I've always been taught that they're dangerous, yet a keto diet seems to promote eating saturated fats with excessive amounts of butter and coconut oil. Should I avoid these saturated fats?
No. Next question, please.
That is correct, Sammy. No, you still want to eat them. So there's definitely a lot of bad information out there. Even with keto, some people are still promoting the wrong types of fats. But I know in the courses you talk about eating certain kind of fats depending on different imbalances. So for some imbalances, saturated fats are great, but you need to avoid them for others.
And I find that most people, even if a person is extremely anabolic, that they don't need to avoid saturated fat. They just need to be aware that saturated fat can have a pro-anabolic effect on some people. But if they're eating some saturated fats and still taking other steps to improve that imbalance, that they do great. But yes, you can use different types of fats to kind of improve specific imbalances, and that can be great. But the point is, the people that are telling you to run away from saturated fats are also the people that are telling you to eat plastic, because they're telling you to use these fake butter spreads things that are one molecule away from being the container that they come in. And you have to understand that that's probably not a good idea. I don't think I would see you chewing on I can't believe it's not something tub. You would know not to do that. So when you see that the advice that they're giving you is so incredibly wrong, then it's easier to accept the fact that them telling you to run from saturated fats is probably just as wrong.
Yeah, and the information is still abundantly out there. I was just looking up some articles relating to fat for a different reason, and every mainstream article I found still said stick with monounsaturated and polyunsaturated and avoid saturated and trans fats. So every single one told you to avoid those. And I could only find the articles where I knew that the sources were reliable that actually talked about the benefits of saturated fats. But I really had to dig deep for those articles.
Well, and we'll get there. It usually takes 10, even 20 years for people to catch up, because I can remember a time when we thought trans fats were a good idea, but everybody's on board that trans fats are bad now, and it's just going to take some time for some of these other things to catch up.
Okay.
But by listening to this show, you got to know 10 years before everybody else. Good job.
So we also have a product review today, and since our last myth we were talking about keto reducing lean muscle mass, I thought that we could talk about Perfect Keto. We have they have a pre-workout shake. I actually have it. It's the Keto Perform Lemon, but I think they have different varieties. Have you ever tried anything like this?
I haven't tried them, but I like the maker, the Dr. What's his name?
Dr. Gustin.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's how you say it. I like him. When I listen to him, I do more nodding than I do shaking my head, which is not all that common all the time. So he gets a good vote in my book.
So he's a smart guy. He does have his own podcast I've listened to as well. So I tried this a while ago. It is basically you're supposed to drink it before you work out. And I was only taking it because I was working out really early and I was tired and I don't really drink coffee. So I thought maybe this would give me a boost during my workout. And it did. I got to the gym and I felt like Superwoman on the weight machines and the cardio. The only problem that I actually had with it is it has stevia in it. And so I would take it fasted, and the stevia, even though a lot of people say that it doesn't break your fast, it breaks your fast. I felt fine for maybe the first 20 or 30 minutes of my workout, but then halfway through I'd start to feel really hungry, which is part of the reason I wanted to take it, so I wouldn't get that hunger. So I actually only used it a few times and then I stopped because I didn't like the feeling hungry part of it.
Have you ever tried it without working out to see if you still felt fasty, breaky? I was just curious.
I've tried other ketones, but not this one, because this one is pre-workout, so I only thought to take it before a workout. But I have tried their other exogenous ketones, and yeah, I mean, the stevia for me, it just doesn't agree with me very well.
Yeah, you don't do very well no matter when you do stevia, so that could have effect too. So maybe somebody else would do well. I haven't tried it though. Pre-workout things are not my jam.
Yeah, so as like a trainer aspect, you wouldn't recommend a pre-workout?
Maybe I would for a client if they just needed something, but I've never used pre-workout things. My pre-workout is to say, oh, I'm going to work out.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like the ingredients in there. I think they use really high quality ingredients. So if someone was looking for a pre-workout, I'd probably recommend this. But
what has it got in it? Let's see.
Where'd it go? Let's see. That's a little hard to find.
A lot of people print things big now. You're always looking for things at the bottom, and some people want to really focus on, here's the ingredients, and you can't find it.
Yeah, there's nothing that says ingredients, but there's a little blurb that says the combination BHB, which is beta hydroxybutyrate, and MCT powder in Keto Perform, along with caffeine, creatine, BCAA, beta alanine, and citrulline, is
Mm-hmm.
enough to power through any workout.
Okay, I'm okay with that. Yeah, I wouldn't yell at anybody for using that if they found that it did well with them. But if you were finding stalls, I would want the stevia out. That would be the first thing I'd want to remove to see if you did better.
Yeah, I'm actually hoping that someday they do make a product without stevia, because I actually love their collagen protein. They have unflavored, so there's no stevia in that. So I'm hoping with more of their products, they'll start to take some of the stevia out so I could actually take them.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So we'll put a link to that if anybody wants to check it out on the show notes. And the show notes page for any links that we talked about will be at chatthefat.com/episode 10. That'll probably be similar to episode 9 because this is a 2-part episode. Do you have any idea what we're talking about in episode 11? Is that just you?
Yeah, episode 11 is another solo episode. And that one, I dig deep on how to avoid obsessing when you're on a keto diet, since I know a little bit about dieting over the years, and I definitely obsessed in my day. So I talk you off the ledge and teach you how to just live a normal life instead of obsessing.
Oh, sweet. Okay. And if you guys have questions, go to chatthefat.com and click on contact us and send us some questions that you want us to answer in an upcoming episode too.
All right.
Okay. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Whether you're brand new to keto or just looking to move past roadblocks, join us for our next Troubleshooting Keto Master Workshop. Go to chatthefat.com/workshop to find upcoming dates and register for this totally free event. You just might find your missing piece of the puzzle. Until then, we'll see you next week on Chat the Fat.